everybody. Today I have a really exciting chiro chat. I've got Ryan Rieder on the call with me. Hi, Ryan.
Hey, Erin. Good
How
to
are
be here.
you? How are
I,
you?
I am awesome. I'm awesome. Really excited to be here today and chat with you today, especially with how you pre-framed the call today. So it's just very exciting to be here. And thank you so much for all you're doing and all the interviews you've done. And I've seen some of those and everything. So thank you so much for everything. And it's awesome to be here.
Not a problem. Ryan, I asked you to come on the call today with me because I really want to know a little bit about who you are, you know. I've loved seeing you online these last few days with your podcast, your webinars, your videos. I mean, it's amazing. You know, it's so great to see. But I wanted to know a little bit about your story. Like, where do you come from? How did you get to where you are today? So you're from South Africa, studied in South Africa.
Yeah, originally,
I was going to ask you, what was your first job after you graduated?
Yeah, awesome. So from South Africa originally, born and bred down there in a little place called Port Elizabeth, small town. You know, it's so funny when you go back to where you know how, like, when you go back to where you're from, you go back and you're like, wow, like so different to how I remembered it when I was at school. But traditionally a very industrial town. Low, if you will, medium income there was medium to lower class, low income. And job, Erin, I actually had downloaded the application forms to apply for a postgraduate medical degree. To go to study to become a medical doctor at Warwick University here in the United Kingdom. My wife and I, who we weren't married then, she was in my class, also a chiropractor. I'm one of 5 first-generation chiropractors. We didn't know that. Myself, my wife, my brother, his wife, and my sister-in-law, all chiropractors. My other sister-in-law runs one of my practices, practice manager, and my mother-in-law ran our accounts. So just say we're all in. We're all in.
You're in.
And then I moved to the UK, and I was going to just, to be honest, my thing was I was going to study medicine, and I went to get my first job really just to pay for that. Natalie was going to work as a chiropractor. I was going to work kind of part-time and study. And I worked into my first job interview with someone who we know mutually. And I remember, my life changed forever. It was the first time I'd ever seen an open plan practice ever in my life. And I walked in there and the energy was different and people were smiling, and this was so different than anything I'd seen at college, you know, and that was my first job, and it was a catalyst. I remember the chiropractor said to me, it was a bit of a test afterwards, he told me, he said, just go speak to people, don't worry about Josh. And he was just testing to see how I'd interact with people, so just go speak to the patients. And I remember a patient walked up to me with a walking stick. And I said hello, and then he said to me, I said, just qualified, I'm about to start practicing. He said, young man, you're walking into an amazing profession, but let me tell you one thing, don't ever let anybody go through the surgery I went through. And he had a routine discectomy and had a lot of nerve damage, and that was my first day. And what I realized was the people I was meeting had more certainty than I had. They were the customers, the patients, the practice members, and it was my first interview. And that I remember feeling quite like bewildered, going like, really feeling like there was incongruency in there in how I felt in it and how they felt it. But they dragged, there's a saying, the person with the highest certainty will always influence the other person. And at the time, it was the patients that had more certainty
than you. Yeah.
And dragging. So that was my first. So worked in the United Kingdom. That was my first job there.
And you've been in the UK now for 10 years?
Yeah, just over 10 years.
And how's that experience been for you? Like, you've got quite a journey to tell, from working as an associate to now being a business owner. So tell us, how did that story begin too? Like, the steps to get to where you are today.
Yeah, so Nat and I came over, and like many people, we started as associates. It's interesting, actually, my first job, now that I think about it, I often tell people about this, but I forget about it. I actually worked as I was a qualified chiropractor, but my first job was like, you're at the front desk, and I worked as a CA/tech doctor for 3-4 months. I always say my biggest blessing. My biggest blessing. I got to just be there. I got to observe hundreds of initial consultations, hundreds of reported findings, possibly thousands of adjustments. before I ever actually laid my hands on someone, I got to speak to patients at the front desk. I got to take money. I got to book ahead of time. I got to practice all those light skills that sometimes chiropractors take for don't fully understand how important are in the practice until you've been there at the front desk and how important your CA is and everything. So my journey was Nat and I, my wife and I, two things. One, we said we'd never work for the same person as an associate. That's one thing. We started there, and that served us well, actually. And then we were just because things happen, you know. And I remember we stuck by our guns. You know, there was an opportunity for us to work with the same people many, many times until the path led us down the particular path that I'll get to now. I worked as associate for 2 years, and this is, goals are so important. My wife and I, and this is why. You know, they say that the man behind every seemingly successful person is an amazing support system. And it was Natalie, really. We said 2 years as associates, and then we opened our own practice. Now, to give you context, I was making very good money as an associate. Incredible money, seeing high volume, double figures every month. Incredible money, like here in the United Kingdom. You know, I was probably top 2% of earners in the country as an associate. And Natalie said to me, 2 years was coming close, and I was maybe I got a little comfortable, and she said to me, "We said 2 years." We said 2 years, and I was earning good money. I was kind of comfortable, you know. And if you're listening to this and you've opened a business before, you know it often doesn't make quite sense. I always say at a certain level, it makes more sense to be an associate financially, but there's more to it than just finances. There's fulfilling an entrepreneurial dream, but purely financially, it makes more sense to be an associate up until a certain level.
Sure.
And anyway, so we went and opened and took the risk. And the one blessing I had was I was very busy as an associate. But what that did for me, and I'm very big on this, is more about self-awareness than any one way of doing it. Actually, me and you were just talking about this prior to the interview, going, you know, you just want to be more how you want the expression of how you want your practice to be, which is a journey that we all go through in business. But for me, being super busy and both my wife and I being self-employed chiropractors kind of wasn't all that it was made out to be for me, in that I realized that my way of being is I feel trapped when I have to be anywhere. If you say to me, you've got to be Monday morning, 8 a.m. every Monday morning, you've got to be here, and you like that just feels trapping for me. If I look at my calendar, my Google Calendar ahead of time, if I see for the next 3 weeks, if I see loads of things in my schedule, I feel I just feel very trapped. So again, it was I was sitting in a conference, Erin, and the guy on stage said that the definition of a business is a profit. First he said, who owns their own business? And everyone put up their hand. He said, whoa. He said, I want to ask the question again. The definition of a business is a profit-making enterprise that works without you.
Nobody put their hands up after that.
Everyone else, I don't have a business. I've got a very high-paying self-employed job, which is fantastic. And gee whiz, we in chiropractic, we take for granted how well we do. Boy, I do many businesses, and the margins in a well-functioning practice are insane.
Yes.
So if you did probably so then that was a big aha for me. There was you know, there are many sentences that I think changed my life, and that was a sentence that changed my life. Profit-making enterprise that works without me. I struggled with guilt for quite a while that I even wanted that, because often in these in like self-employed professions, chiropractors, dentists, doctors, it's like if you're not doing the thing, you're seen as less than. But I really felt strongly that it was the path for me, and then we went on the path of I met my business partner who owned 2 practices at a time. We joined together. I actually approached him to buy his practice, and we sat down, and this is the true story, Aaron. We sat down. I was traveling home. You know, they say there's a phrase about power of disgust. Sometimes disgust is very different from shame. Sometimes you can be disgusted with something, and that's a catalyst to take action. Sometimes, like, that's why it's very important to look at numbers and your bank account and your figures and your stats, because sometimes you look at a stat and you're like, the power of disgust is I'm done with that number. I've got to fix it.
Right.
And I was traveling home on a train. It was snowing here in the United Kingdom. It was probably like 10 p.m. in the evening. I was commuting 2 hours each way to this particular job, and I phoned my wife. I'd had enough. That was my That was my enough moment. And I was like, phone your boss now and tell him I want to see him tomorrow. And Natalie said, you mad? I'm not phoning him now. It's 10 p.m. at night. I'm not phoning him now. I said, freaking phone him now. And because he had told me he would sell to me many times. And the next day we ended up at lunch. My wife and his wife went for a walk. We opened our first bottle of wine. And by the second bottle of wine, we decided we were going to business together.
That's it. Confirmed.
And the rest is history, Aaron. Like then we went from 2 practices to 8 practices in the space of about 5 years, something like that. And now have.
I'm sure that wasn't that easy. 2 to 8, like bam. In 5 years.
No,
Exactly.
there's a reason I'm bald, and if you're
There's
familiar
a whole
with
lot of
Robert
learning
Kiyosaki,
in that.
oh my word, we always say, boy, it's about making as many mistakes as quickly as possible. That's all it's about. I think one of the hardest things, I said so many times, one of the hardest things a person will ever do, a self-employed person, always move from, if you're familiar with Robert Kiyosaki's work, he talks about going from self-employed to business owner. It's kind of the journey I've just spoken to you about now. Profit-making enterprise works out to you. That journey is the hardest thing anyone will ever do.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is that it's a pay cut. You take a 6-figure pay cut. Initially you take a 6-figure pay cut.
Yeah.
So that's that real belief. And don't forget, I'm earning awesome money, 6 figures a year as an associate, 0 risk.
Claro.
I mean, love it. Finish work and away. I never forget, finish work on a Wednesday at like 1. Natalie and I, we had picnics in the park every Wednesday. And then we went to owning a business, which is nonstop. It's hardest. You take a 6-figure cut. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
But because there's this deep desire in us to fulfill that entrepreneurial journey.
Exactly.
So that was the path for us. And as I say, and now I've branched out into teaching and coaching, and I've also got property portfolio. And again, just trying to multiply myself as often as I can. I have this deep desire to influence more. That's kind of I always say it's a bit of a disease, is you get to a certain level and then you're like, I got to a certain level in one-on-one, and there was like, I need multiple practices. And I got to a certain level of multiple practices, and I was like, okay, I need to influence more.
Businesses. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I can influence more people by helping other people influence more people. So then I started coaching and mentoring, and that's just a path.
And what do you see, Ryan, now that, I mean, your journey is never finished, but, like coming along this journey, and you reflect back and you listen to other chiropractors' stories at points where you have been before. What's some advice that you give some people about breaking through these barriers that people have? Like, I'm sure that you see common barriers within our profession, So what's some of your golden nugget advice, if I could ask?
Yeah. Look, I'm a very simple businessman. I'm a very simple businessman. I like to use the word businessman. I like to use the word entrepreneur. Again, there's like a negative connotation of that sometimes, but that's really what I am. And for me, I believe 2 things. One thing, nothing's new. I think, none of us came out the womb knowing anything. So to act like we have we've got all the genius within us that we need, but pretty much anything we want in life has been done before us. Literally, I mean, anything you want to learn has been written about in a book. Anything. So I think there's too much credit given to innovation. It sounds sexy to innovate and to invent, but like, I just know that's not me, and I don't know.
Keep on the wheel, keep it going.
Yeah, well, just there's other people that have done it, so I just model. That's my biggest advice for everyone is, Tony Robbins says, proximity is power. So we try to figure out everything on our own when there is everything we want to achieve has been achieved by someone. And often we can pay to stay close to that, which I've done my whole life. I always say a coach without a coach is not a coach. Like, how can a coach say you should pay me for coaching, but not take up coaching themselves? And I've toured.
It's like a chiropractor. Would you want to be adjusted by a chiropractor that's subluxated, like that doesn't go to a chiropractor? No.
Oh, well said. That's exactly it. So yeah, I guess my simple advice I give everyone is probably oversimplified, but is like, just find the thing you want to do and go model it and go. I believe in shamelessly copying in my group. That's why you pay to be part of a group, is that there's someone that's done it better than you. Go and model it and go do it legally, ethically, and morally as you can. And so that's my biggest piece of advice is pay to stay close to the energy. Proximity is power. Do not try to figure it out yourself. I don't. I certainly don't.
Okay. And so, Ryan, you talk about how you multiplied your practices, but what about with your family too? You and Nat were 2 and now you're 4. How was that journey too within the other journey?
Yeah, it's awesome. You know, anyone that's a parent will tell you that there's just everything kind of pales into consideration when you start talking about your family and think of your family. It does put stuff in context. I must say, having a family now, you know how you look back and you go, some of the stuff I said or did prior to having kids, you know, people with kids must have looked at me at the time and gone, idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And now I'm that guy. I'm like, I struggle to take advice from people who haven't got kids. And it's a stupid little thing, but it's only because it's, for me, running a family and a business and being mission driven has been a real challenge. I haven't taken to that like a duck to water. I really had to work on. I don't like the term balance because I think you have to be successful at anything. There are times where you have to be extremely unbalanced at the thing. Anyone that's very successful at anything, by the way, including parenting, if you have a child that's going through a health expression for the night, you would never go to the child and go, little Johnny, can you please, daddy needs some balance, so please get sick by yourself.
Only half sick, you know, that's all I can handle right now.
You're all in. And so I think anything like it that requires you to be extremely successful in anything, there are moments of extreme imbalance, which takes a lot of conversation between you and your family. It takes, Nat and I work really hard on this, and we don't always get it right, obviously, but people say this is lip service. I would never be where I am today if it wasn't for Natalie, my wife. She's the primary caregiver in my household. She's the primary caregiver of this child. And yeah, I mean, everything. She's a chiropractor. She understands what I'm going through. She also, her father, Nat's dad, is a very successful entrepreneur himself. So I think it helps that Natalie grew up in a household where there's no success without a certain level of sacrifice. Something sacrifices somewhere, you know, and but it's just the level of that. And by the way, I certainly get it wrong. So yeah, it's this constant dance between the mission driven thing and going for the thing, and then like bringing yourself back down to planet Earth at times. As my wife always says,
bring it down.
Sometimes I need that. So yeah, so that's kind of a sum up of that journey for me, and entrepreneurship and running a family and finding out what really matters, and then trying to balance ambition.
So Ryan, my last question for you today, I want you to get out your crystal ball if you can, you know, and what do you think's going to happen? What do you see how do you see 2020 finishing in a chiropractic sense? You know, how do you feel? Is there going to be a shift in paradigm in health, in our profession? Do you see, what's your crystal ball prediction?
Yeah. Okay. Great question. I think that every marketplace needs a correction. That's the history of mankind, right? I spend a lot of time with, and I don't really do much stock market stuff, but I spend a lot of time with people that do, backstage, etc., at events, and prior to this crash, this is the general conversation. People would, in green rooms, I'd be sitting there overhearing conversation, and someone would say, "We desperately need a crash. We desperately need a crash. So if you look at some of the top industries on the planet, we're desperately needing this crash. Now we can go into conspiracy theories for forever, but the reality is every marketplace, doesn't care what it is, needs some type of correction. It happens in health. In health, sometimes we need a correction in our health, and sometimes that comes as a health crisis, and then that shifts. Pretty much nobody changes until the pain of where they're at is great enough. That's life.
Yeah.
So sometimes that's when we're trying to avoid that from a chiropractic perspective with people's health. We don't want them to go into crisis before we can help them, but the reality is most people don't change until the crisis where they're at is great enough, and prevention is quite a hard thing to sell. However, that being said, I think there's two elements. One is the business element. I think that we haven't even begun. I don't want to scare people right now, but I think from a financial perspective, we haven't even begun to see the financial effects of the COVID-19 lockdown. Just yesterday, 2 big restaurant chains, 9,900 people are losing their jobs in the United Kingdom. Every day there's a new massive industry going under. It's going to, business-wise, in especially United Kingdom and places like that, it's going to change the high streets forever.
Yeah.
It's going to change the high streets forever. There are restaurants run on like a 5% profit margin, if that. So you can't not trade for 3 months. You're not making it. So that's one interesting thing about it. But then I think it could heighten people's idea of where their health should be, which it's interesting. We opened traditionally across my 8 sites. I always need about 150 to 250 new patients a week to keep my machine going. And 200 a week's kind of a KPI for me across my 8 sites. It works out to about 25 new patients per practice per week, something like that. And I'm like, so we've lost essentially screenings, we've lost talks in businesses, and yet for the last few weeks we've been doing 200 new patients a week. All I've been doing is advertising on Facebook, but most of it's coming organically, and most of it's coming from Facebook. That is, I've never done that before in my career. I've never ever got 200 plus new patients a week with only doing one source of marketing. Which shows that there's either pent up demand, or people are like, freaking heck, I need to look after my health.
I personally as well have not found. I thought that would be a big issue coming back, first visits. I would say that's the least of, it's the opposite. There's been more demand than ever, doing nothing, just people wanting to come get fixed. They don't like what's happening. They're working at home, that they want to look after their health. I think there is a shift happening, definitely.
I think that's one thing. And interesting, we just before the interview, we spoke about also timings. I think traditionally, how, especially in our kingdom and big cities, often a peak time is once people finish work. I think that might change, Erin, because do you know how many businesses are getting rid of their head offices?
Yeah.
Because my team has said, we've been working all from home. My team is like, would you consider going to working in the office 2 to 3 days a week, and then we work at home 2 to 3 days a week? And we've been doing it at home every day. My whole consulting team, if you will. So I've got a team of 5, and it's made every business reassess head office overheads, things like that. So I think also that's going to make more people more available to come for their chiropractic adjustments kind of any time of the day. That could be something that we see. I think that like any bad economy, good economies flatter the average. Okay. I'm actually busy reading a book by Keith Cunningham at the moment, and it's called The Road Less Stupid. And it talks about how just you can actually be very successful by doing less stupid stuff. But one thing he talks about is like any fool can become successful in a good economy. It's when the economy is bad that you can see who's vulnerable. So I think a couple of things. I have been approached by more chiropractors than I've ever been approached in my life to sell their practice.
Okay.
Because they've realized that running this business is hard. We don't talk enough about it in chiropractic. It's hard running a business. And there's like, you made to feel weak if you say it's hard. No, it's freaking hard. There are many mornings I wake up and I'm like, I'm done. That's normal. That's like, we like feel like we're less than in chiropractic. We're like, oh, he must be not on fire if he wakes up and says that. That's not true. Every business owner wakes up one morning and goes, fuck, it's hard. And excuse my language, it's hard. Today is a hard day. That's normal. And obviously as the crash happened and as people had to close, many businesses contacted me and said, I want out. I'd prefer to come work as an associate. I think that might be a path for longer for people. I also think, I feel quite sorry. My predictions are, I do feel quite sorry for new graduates. And the reason I feel sorry for new graduates is, Erin, you and I will be the first people to say, when you first come out of college, you know nothing.
No.
You haven't even begun your career. And we are going to enter an economy that requires you to be better at conversion and retention. Meaning you have to get more from less, meaning you have to keep customers. And the number one thing with new graduates is they really struggle to do that and that's
because
not
they
their
don't have
fault.
experience. It
None.
takes experience to do that. Yeah. To
It takes
read people, to sell it, to know it. Yeah. To have
my
that
advice,
spirit.
if I could give advice, my advice would be, if you're a new graduate right now, everything that's ever happened good to me in my life, I did for free first. My first chiropractic job, I got paid zero, nada, nothing. I went in, I was at the front desk, and I went and observed hundreds, possibly thousands of adjustments and hundreds of reports, 100 new patients, unpaid, so I could get the job. And it changed my life. My first speaking gigs, I traveled around the world. I paid my own flights, my own accommodation. I did not get paid. Went away from my family for 4 nights at a time, all across the world, zero pay. Obviously, that led to me being paid lots of money to be on stage for the weekend. That led to me being paid lots of money as a chiropractor. That led to me. First step. So my first step for any new graduate right now is, remember, if you want to go work for Jamie Oliver, you pay him. He doesn't pay you. And you're gonna, I know you're gonna listen to it right now going, what? Like, you take me, like, yes, I'm telling you, go find out who you want to be more like, who already doing it well, and do whatever you have to do to stay close to that person, because that will change your life. And if that means you have to go observe for 3 months while you learn that, if you're lucky enough for them to have you, it'll change your life. So those are.
Ryan, thank you so much. It's been great chatting to you. Keep up the good work, please, because your energy and your vision and your experience helping more chiropractors is only a positive change in our profession. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, you're so welcome, and thank you so much. And I think everyone, we're just so blessed to be in such an incredible profession. I don't know any profession right now where you could open up your doors straight after lockdown, and for most practices be pretty much back to normal within no time. That is unheard of. We are so blessed. So thank you so much for spreading the amazing word and all you do. And it's been amazing to see all you're doing. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Ryan. Bye.
Bye.